as well as Lesotho and Swaziland. We are part of what we would call the Southern African Customs Union. And within the Customs Union, we have particular rules that allow us to trade freely with each other without imposing unnecessary red tape or closing our borders for each other's goods. Whilst South Africa is struggling now to deliver vegetables to Namibia and Botswana, our borders remain open for their products to enter South Africa. So it's just a bit of a distortion that we need to address. And secondly, we need to go back to the SACU rules and ask ourselves whether these rules are still relevant in today's time.
So, Christo, did we find ourselves on the back foot? Did Botswana and Namibia did they kind of come with these latest rulings out of the blue? Surely, if this was the route they were thinking of going, they should have given us timeliest notice regarding this issue, because I do understand that the Namibian Agronomic Board spokesperson, August Fabian, has argued that the restrictions were not against the SACU agreement, which you've just referred to now, citing that they are trying to protect their infant industries, such as those in their own country, and obviously it's in their best interest to do so.
Indeed, but now imagine South Africa decides tomorrow that we will not accept their meat because we want to protect our own industry. Where does it leave us? Then it leads to a tit-for-tat situation, which is not in the interest of the poorest of the poor. Something that we also need to take note of is the fact that you cannot unilaterally decide, but tomorrow I close my borders. We have what we call the Agricultural Trade Forum, the ATF, here in South Africa. That forum plays an instrumental role in terms of ensuring that everyone abides to the rules. Now, yes, and we do the same. We need to protect our own industry, but we do that through tariffs. Secondly, we need to empower our own farmers, and we do that through proper training, but not through the unilateral closing of borders. What is also very important is that we need to, once we decide to go that route, that you want to build the capacity of your own farmers, then you sit around the table and you say, right, for this year, we want to at least make sure that 10% of our goods come from our own farmers. Next year, we want to see 15%, 20%. And that's how you grow your sector. And that's the best way to do it, because who's suffering now? On the Botswana side, we know there's a massive shortage of vegetables because their own farmers cannot deliver at this point in time. So it leads to hunger, it leads to impoverishment if you close your borders just for the sake of closing it without taking a note of, what the implications will be on your people.
So, Christo, the all-important question is, does this mean job losses for South African farm workers? You referred to the ATF. I'm wondering if they could intervene at this point in time, because surely we are talking of the current crop of produce that we're sitting with, which, as I understand, Botswana and Namibia there are contractual obligations which they need to then take this produce off South African farmers' hands. Can you respond to those two very important questions?
Yeah. First and foremost, it will not necessarily lead to job losses on our side. But remember, in vegetable farming, you make use of a lot of seasonal workers. So for seasonal workers, they might miss an opportunity to earn money for that period that they work on a farm to plant or to harvest the vegetables. Secondly, you must also know that your national minimum wage in Botswana sits at approximately R5.60 per hour. In Namibia, approximately R12. In South Africa, our minimum wage sits at R23.90. So the cost of producing vegetables on our side is much higher than in Botswana and um, Namibia.
Namibia.
So one would then argue that would have given them a massive advantage over us, competitive advantage over South Africa. But well, that's why the role of the ATF is so important. We have received a notice from them that they have requested the Minister of Agriculture to intervene, to engage with the counterparts. So yes, we keep our fingers crossed that we will come back to the table and discuss this. Remember now, the SACU, the Southern Africa Customs Union, was created for one purpose only, and that was to form a competitive bloc. In other words, for the SACU region, become a competitor in the international market of trade, especially agricultural trade. So people often miss that bigger vision. We've also got that vision for SADC, the SADC region, but that has not materialized as yet. We've also got that vision for the African Free Trade Agreement, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, for the African continent to lift itself out of poverty, to be able to become one of the biggest exporters of agricultural goods to the rest of the world. But if you have this kind of pettiness between countries, and then in the process forget about the bigger vision, then you will never realize those very honorable vision that we have to take Africa forward and position it as a world player.
So it seems like these countries, obviously Namibia and Botswana, are flouting these rules that are there, in fact, to protect not only them, but us as South Africa as well, and as you've indicated, the SADC region. So in theory, there are markets for South African products outside of the South African Customs Union, SACU, as you referred to, both on the continent and beyond. So for now, what we need to wait and see what's going to happen is whether this agreement and arrangements and talks can be done almost timelessly, and whether it will be economically viable to do so. But you also have noted something else which is very important, very especially in South Africa, but it does have an impact on our neighbors, and that is factors such as the conditions of the roads, rails, and ports has to be considered. We've got to get not only us, but our neighbors as well, need to get our act in order regarding infrastructure, because if that doesn't work, nothing else is going to work at all. Your thoughts, Christo?
Indeed. Remember now, you want to compete with the European Union. You want to compete with the Brazilian markets. You want to compete with the United States and so forth. And you want to be in a position to then produce, the best quality of fruit and vegetables, agricultural products, you name it. And you want to be first on the market. But to be first on the market, you need to make sure that your airports, your roads, your harbors function optimally, so that can give you the competitive advantage. The consumer ultimately doesn't ask, is this apple coming from South Africa or from Peru or from Chile or from wherever? The consumer looks at the apple and says, wow, what a beautiful apple this is. It's a quality apple. And it's affordable, and I can feed my family with it. And that's the space where we need to operate in. But for us to operate in that space, as you rightly say, infrastructure, empowerment of our farmers, creating conducive policy conditions for farmers to operate in. Also developing the agriculture sector in Namibia, Botswana, as well as other SADC region countries and SACU countries. That's the way to go. But to play small politics, that will not serve the bigger purpose at the end of the day.
Finally, a very crucial question. I'm wondering about I understand that you as Agri Forum,
Agri SA.
obviously, Agri SA, thank you for the correction, last week made a plea to South Africa's Minister of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, that's Thoko Didisa, requesting that the government urgently intervenes to reverse the bans. Have you heard anything back from this government department?
Yes, our concerns were noted at, as I said, as the ATF, the Agriculture Trade Forum. We've also got acknowledgements from both departments, DTI as well as the Agricultural Department. But remember now, the Minister has played a critical role in terms of ensuring that the ban on wool exports to China has lifted. He also played a critical role in terms of getting the EU to accept our citrus and not to subject it to those very stringent rules that they imposed. So yes, we are grateful for the work that both ministers have been doing, and all that we ask is now that let us deal with the SACU and the SADC questions, and let us commit ourselves, because if the commitment is there and the political will is there, just imagine what Africa and South Africa and the SADC region, the SACU region, can achieve in terms of world trade, and in the process earn a lot of foreign exchange to develop the African continent, to develop our people, and to modernize our economic systems, because this is ultimately the vision that we need to realize.
My final question to you then is, and we need to put this on record, is you are reassuring us at this point in time that there isn't going to be a glut of vegetables, and because of the current situation we find ourselves in, there isn't going to be a price rise in vegetables, because we're reeling as it is with high food prices, the energy crisis, the petrol prices, and so forth and so forth, and the list is just absolutely endless. Can you reassure us that this is not going to happen?
Look, I don't think there will be any shortage on the market. That I can assure you. But because we live in a free market system, there's very little control over prices. Prices are impacted by all of those things that you have mentioned: energy, logistics, cost of fertilizer, you name it, cost of labor. So all of those things have an impact. And that's why, as a sector, we continuously engage, we are continuously highlight these issues in the papers with a massive advocacy role, because any disruption can have a cost impact at the end of the day. And who ultimately suffers it is the consumers out there. Because farmers not produce food for it to remain on shelves. We want South African customers to enjoy it. Food is ultimately the biggest contributor to life, if I may, from a philosophical perspective. So, and it's also a constitutional obligation enshrined in Section 27 of the Constitution that we must feed our people. So feeding our people remains our core objective, ensuring food certainly for the country and for the African continent, but at the same time, we need to address these issues and challenges in an amicable way, so that all of us can benefit from trade agreements.
Absolutely, and we do hope and pray for a very positive outcome and for it to be a win-win situation for all the role players. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show this morning, Christo van Reede, Executive Director of Agri SA. Go well, thank you for your time. It is exactly 8:32 a.m. News and Views right here on Salam Media.
Listen to something fresh.